I try my best to be very observant and very attentive to everyone around me, so that even if someone is a bad influence, I can even pick up the 2 cents of positive influence and apply that into what I'm doing in my life, right?
Hey, and welcome to another episode of the SMA Audio Experience Podcast. We're joined this week by a past guest who's had a remarkable story and who's leading the way, because out of all the guests so far on the SMA Audio Experience Podcast, this will be his third appearance on the podcast. So we're really excited to have Mr. Sean Panado online. Hey, Sean, thanks for taking time out of your break, and we know that you have a really busy schedule to join us on the call and chat about some really great stuff you have going on.
Oh, of course. Thanks for having me. I never use the term busy when I'm speaking to anyone, because if I like it and if it's important to me, I'll make time for it. And this is important to me, so of course I'll make time for it.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, as I mentioned in the introduction, for those, we may have some new listeners on the line. And some existing listeners who followed us ever since the beginning. So I think at the time of the recording, this is probably going to be episode either 36 or 37. We just released episode 35, and we kind of did a little segue because I plugged in the most recent most recent podcast episode that got released today. That's in iTunes and all your favorite podcast directories. I shared a little bit of like a 5-second story. I didn't say Sean's name, but I said I did cite his story and this project that he launched with him and some business partners. So I don't want to steal too much of his thunder, but since we last spoke, you had, I think, to give some context to the listeners, first episode that we recorded with you, it was just a couple weeks right before you started freshman year at UCLA, right? And then the second episode, we were able to catch up with you after either 1 or 2 semesters at college, so you already had gone through that, that first year, or going through that first year. And then now I know that you had something, because we've been following you on Twitter, Instagram, and just keeping up with you. We know that you launched something not just by yourself, but with a great team of people. So I want to go ahead and turn the mic over to you, and I want you to share what you have going on top of school, on top of all the relationships and all the loved ones you care about. What did you find time to fit in that matters to you right now? Can you share that project?
Sure. So the name of my company that I recently started, this past summer, is called Foresight Academy. It's spelled with the number 4 and then Sight Academy. It was based on, since I go to UCLA, and our slogan is kind of like 4's up, because we have like an 8 clap, and our mascot is the Bears. That's what kind of inspired the name. So Foresight, like foresee the future, and I use number 4 because 4's up is our slogan. And basically what Foresight Academy is, it's a company that provides a service for middle school athletes as of right now. And specifically, we focus on injury prevention. A lot of the times in female athletics, girls are more susceptible to ACL, MCL, or meniscus tears simply because of the anatomy of their bodies. For example, they have wider hips. They have like a smaller surface area along the knee joint. So it's those factors that kind of lead them to be more susceptible to injury. And what my company offers is a service where we essentially host camps or sports camps for middle school girls to learn the proper mechanics and form to decelerate, change direction, land from a vertical jump, all that good stuff that you would need on a field, on a court, anything whenever you're doing anything athletic or physical, or any physical fitness, anything like that.
Awesome. And I know that when I first saw it, on like when you did that official like launching or post of it, like many of us who are listening on the call, we see all these, sports camps or fitness gurus or fitness experts and, all these, areas and everything. But what really caught my attention is right off the bat, it just wasn't another like sports camp with, expertise charging X amount of money, targeting this specific sport or what have you. But what was really unique was coming from the angle of catching it really early and like targeting, like that middle school, high school, range. And then I really liked what stood out to me, what caught my attention was right when you just said, hey, we're not trying to do total body, like full, body immersion or this, some hoopla stuff. You just said, like knee injuries. That's like super visual, like relate, I can relate to that. I know a lot of people who played sports, or their kids play sports, and they've already started suffering like some knee injuries or strains or broken bones, and they're barely even in elementary school, right? And like these are people,
Right.
and to hear that specific target that you're starting with was really a breath of fresh air that I really haven't seen. And I really like, I've been tracking as like, oh, okay, I really want to have you on the podcast after some time under there, because we really want to dissect not just like the service you provide, but okay, hey, like we were talking right before we hit record right now, right? Like, you went to Saints, you graduated from there, you're an alumni from there. Like, I'm sure there's going to be other, fellow, Saintsmen who might want to follow and model, what you've done. Like, you're still going to go to school, you're going to still work, and all that stuff. But start a business, like, where did that come from? Like, when did that start investing itself?
Right. Well, like you said, well, just to give more background on the company, like you said, the reason why I chose middle school athletes as my demographic is because if you can kind of lay the foundation early before they go into high school or college or maybe even pro for some of these athletes, um, you really set their career up for success, right? Because for anything, you want to start off with a good foundation, and you want to really correct and train the natural bad tendencies before they go on to the next level. Because when they're tired and fatigued at the next level, that's when obviously their most genuine tendencies and natural habits come out, right? So if those bad habits are already set from the beginning as poor, then you're just setting yourself up for injury or any form of any bad luck, right? So you always want to set yourself up for success by laying the foundation early in the right way. But kind of like what you said, it's not so much cookie cutter. Like, yeah, we're not a program. We're a program, but we're not like a club team. We're not going to use words like premier or elite or anything like that, because I'm just very straightforward, very very honest with who I'm working with, what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and that's the biggest thing. Is that, for example, I held a parent information session at the end of my first camp, which was at UCSD, the weekend before Christmas, and I was just very honest with them. I told them I'm just a 19, 20-year-old kid. I started with some of my high school friends because this was just a pressing issue that I found within my group of childhood friends who are female athletes who are currently playing in college or in high school. And I just noticed like there's so many injuries, and I just really wanted to bring to light that specific subject. And what I told them is that like I'm just a 19, 20-year-old kid, and it's just very straightforward, very honest. It's out of my pocket to start the company because this is just something that I feel truly passionate about, and obviously that I'm serious about, for me to put as much money as I have already so far into the company. I think I mentioned before in one of my first podcasts that to get on a very personal level, that my pops had passed away my freshman year of high school, and he had left behind just enough for me to get by with college, like just barely. But I've actually dipped into that, and for some it might be funny, but I've dipped into that to spend for the company. But this is just something that I feel so passionate about, and I feel like he would support me because he would understand how serious I am about it. And that's how those are the kinds of funds that I've dipped into, because this is just a company and service that I'm very serious about. It's not a business driven by the monetary return, is what I say. Why would I'm going through school. I don't need money in my pocket. I'm not trying to scam kids for money in my pocket. I'm offering a service that's unique and hasn't really been addressed in the world of youth sports today, because that's the biggest thing with clubs and camps and sports and everything with the youth nowadays. It's what can that director or organizer do for his or own monetary gain, and that's why I don't call myself like the owner. I'm not the manager. I'm not anything like that. I call myself the lead visionary because I have a vision for this upcoming generation of athletes, and I want it to be different than what it is right now, and I want to take it there on my own terms and for the right reason, for the right way. So that's why I started my company and what we're doing now.
Very cool. And now, obviously, you were probably having some discussions. So let's dive deeper into the box. So like when you started having these discussions, were these with like your former like athlete high school, like teammates, or just like close friends that you've had or you built relationships? Maybe they came from even other high schools. Like who are some of these people that you formed the company with, like your partners, your team?
Oh, my team. It's not. I've edited my team a little bit, even just from starting this past summer. Just because that's what I've learned in entrepreneurship. It's like you kind of try everything, and then you either find out what works and what doesn't work, because what works for somebody else necessarily won't work for you. And so I formed my team, my initial team, with my high school friends. Um, One was my director of finance. We grew up together, and then I have a director of media who we also grew up together. And then the other one was marketing, but a couple had to step down for other personal reasons, and then a couple other had to um, they just weren't bought in. So I kind of edited the team a little bit. It's a little edited right now, as of right now, after the first camp. But like I've been reaching out to my entire network. Hey, what are the best ways to do this? For example, like even when I held the parent information session that I just talked about, I I was very honest and straightforward, like I said, and I even reached out to my mentor, Coach Mike Hopp at St. Anne's High School, my basketball coach. I said, Coach, what are some tips that I can give to the parents, um, in addition to talking about my company, for when they're selecting high school for their daughter, right? And he said, there's a couple of things here. Like I was even speaking to it just now with a friend's parent. Just for example, like one, I was giving them a piece of advice that when parents are selecting high school um, for their daughter or son, be put in the extensive research that you put in for buying a car, a house, or any other investment, right? Why wouldn't you do the extensive research for your child's education as you do for your car or house, when your child is going to be spending 5 to 6 days a week at that respective school, right? So that was one. And then the other one was saying, like, parents are so quick to go on a vacation, whether it be a 1 or 2 week vacation and across the country, but they won't spend that extra 5 to 10 minutes extra to drive his or her kid to a school that's perhaps maybe a little bit further than the local school. You know what I mean? So that was just, those are just tips, and those are just things that I've been reaching out to, and just reading a lot of reading, a lot of reaching out to already successful people who have done what I have done. Um, but a lot of it is just, I'm just really thankful for the people that have been willing to help me. My sponsors, my team, my network, my mentors, everyone who's pretty much been along the way has been huge for me, because I try my best to be very observant and very attentive to everyone around me, so that even if someone is a bad influence, I can even pick up the 2 cents of positive influence and apply that into what I'm doing in my life, right? Because that's what you try to do, is you try to accumulate all of the experiences that you have, that you've grown up with, and form it into yourself and develop your own opinion, your own thoughts, your own ideas. Um, Even, sorry, I know I'm rambling here, but even for example, like um, at my past birthday, my birthday this past holidays, it's during the holidays, and my brothers were saying, "Oh, like congratulations on the company and your new girlfriend and stuff like that." And I was like, I just want you guys to know, for example, I was telling my brothers and my mom that the reason why I think the way I do is because of how they've raised me, right? Just being around them, I naturally pick up habits, and I naturally form my own ideas and thoughts. And that is accumulated, as the youngest of seven. All of that has accumulated to how I am today, and everyone always says, "Oh, you did it all on your own." And I just feel so, I just, at that, when people say that to me, I just get really upset, because it's just so disrespectful to everyone else who's been a part of the way, So that's what's very important to me when I always talk about this kind of stuff.
Oh, it makes sense. It makes sense. And I mean, I think every episode we've recorded, where this this is one of the, like, every episode we have, we always get really deep, and you can hear the passion and the emotion in your voice, because each word carries, like, life. You know what I mean? It carries soul of
Right.
the journey of, like, not just, like you said, not just yours, but other people. Like, for because all of those little tools in the tool belt, those things that you pick up along the way, um, it wasn't just straight from the classroom, or it just wasn't from, a 4 month relationship of building, that you of new people you met. It's just not that confined. You know what I mean? It's everything, everything
Right.
till present day, right? Present time, present in the moment. Um, Very cool. And so here's a couple things, like, so obviously it sounds like you've held more than one camp. So for those, like a lot of people and even a lot of elementary school kids, when they're like learning something new or going through, so like a multi-phase project, a lot of times they get down, right? Like there's so much pressure they put on themselves, and sometimes they get pressure from their parents and all that stuff. Having your own money in this after you ran that first camp, like what were like what were top three things that stood out to you after you reflected after that first camp got done, that you're like, wow, like that didn't go well, or that didn't go right at all, and obviously you bounced back because you had other camps, but what were like, you know, 2 to 3 things, if you feel like sharing, that he just said, oh, that didn't go well. And
Right, right. Well, you're right. I'm gonna be honest with you, Mark. I haven't. I've only held one camp, and
okay.
right now I've only had one camp, and I haven't made my money back yet from the start of the company and the start of the first camp.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess some of the top things that I would say is um, the biggest thing is never compromise your values and why you started for the monetary return. Right. I knew that I was going to lose money to
Mm-hmm.
start, but I never compromise what I'm doing, why I'm doing it for the monetary return, right? Because I could have bumped up the prices, or I could have raised it, or I could have dropped it just so I can break even or even make some money off of it. But that's not what it's about, right? I
Right.
was focusing on the quality and building my community around me and my followers and just not followers, but like good people to surround myself with,
Right.
And that was the biggest thing, is that I wanted people, because the biggest thing nowadays is you can have a horrible product, horrible camp, horrible anything that you offer could be horrible, right? But if you
Right.
market it well enough,
Mm-hmm.
people will still buy it.
Right.
But it's not about, if genuinely, if I know that my product or camp isn't the right way with the highest quality that I can give,
Mm-hmm.
why would I offer it? Why would I? If I know myself, that is just going against my values, and that's what I wanted to focus on, is that the quality of the camp, how I'm interacting with the kids. For example, I gave each kid a UCLA sponsored drawstring bag, a
Right.
UCLA sponsored sweatshirt,
Mm-hmm.
2 camp T-shirts, a bookmark from a sponsor, 2 exercise bands from a sponsor,
Man.
um, 2 stickers. Like I gave them everything I could,
Right.
and I gave them personalized notes from handwritten from all the coaches,
There you go.
um, all of that stuff. Just because it's not about what what they can do for me, it's just what I can do for them, Because I always say, like, it's not, when I'm not around anymore, people aren't gonna, when we aren't around anymore, Market, people aren't gonna remember well um, what people aren't gonna remember what we did, right? Our accomplishments. They're just gonna remember how we made them feel, what
Mm-hmm.
we did for them,
Right.
and that's how our soul and everything after will persist, and carry on. Because at the end of the day, it's not about what you're doing, it's about what you can do for other people.
Right. And it's built in your piece by piece. I think we're gonna hope. We're gonna do really well, as best as in our control. What is it, to live as the longest lives possible, right? But
Right.
it goes back to that classic. It's what our parents built a long time ago when all these buzzwords weren't around. They just did. They did. We're basically building our reputation, right? That they built for like 50 years, 60 years, right? Even before, well before we were like conceived and stuff like that. So um,
Right.
that's very cool. Okay. So then, so you had the one camp. What is that? What were like along the way? Obviously, you're going to have some detractors. Everyone goes through that, as an entrepreneur starting new ventures and everything like that. You'll probably have some within the family and outside of the family. Like what what is that? And I know with your mental attitude and your strength and your support network, you're able to, redirect that and use that energy and everything. Did you have that? Have you had that so far along the way? Where you've had
Are you
some,
talking about negativity
yeah,
or like negative?
you're
Yes, definitely.
just saying, hey, hey kid, you know what? Like those are a dime a dozen. Like, hey, like you're just another kid who had that idea of doing like another sports thing, another fitness thing. We've seen there, been there, done that. I've been doing this for 10, 15 years. Da 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 da. Like, oh, why are you using? Or like from a family member, hey, like you're using the money that your father set aside for quote unquote college or education. But I mean, in a way, this is like a really good form of education too, right? It's just not conventional, of compared to like
Right.
university. So can you kind of expand on that? Because that honesty, I think people need to hear, like not just the like students like right now who are, if you're in elementary school or in high school right now, don't need to hear it, but importantly, they're living under the homes, like either a single parent or two parents. Parents are probably going to hear this and they need to hear it too. So can you expand on that? Because we're all guilty of passing judgment, right? We're human. So if you
Right. And I
pass
think, yeah, definitely. I think, like to answer your previous question too on what tips I could give, I only gave one, which is not compromise values. Two, it's just, two, it's um, to keep in mind that if it makes you happy, then, and it's something that you're passionate about, the rest is the rest to a degree is irrelevant, right? Like if you're doing something that makes you happy and someone else is bashing that, that's not a you issue, It's somebody else's it's somebody else who has a problem with what you're doing. And if it makes you happy, why would you change that, And people like you said, some people are bashing me, and some of my family are like, what are you doing? And I just think personally, I've taken my time. I've done my finances, my X's and O's, and I've drawn it all out. And I think that in the end, this will turn out to be a success, or I know it will be a success. But like I firmly believe that. But at the end of the day, even if it doesn't, it makes me happy. So what at the end of it, what's the point? It helps other people. It makes me happy. What else am I missing? It's about the right stuff, and it makes me happy. So it's why would I listen to somebody else who's telling me to believe in something else that makes me happy? I don't, it's like being passionate about being, for example, like you said, you mentioned middle schoolers and high schoolers, and it's like, if you're passionate about the arts and someone's telling you to do sports, why would you give up the arts because of sports, regardless of what, and to a degree, when your parents are telling you, when our parents are telling us to do otherwise, it's like they will respect what you do eventually if you somehow find a way to include them, right? My mom, for example, who's still around, she questions what my decision to do all of this. She's like, "Why are you coming down every weekend from school to work with the company?" It's like, well, Mom, like you told me to, if I really want something to have tenacity about it, to get after it, and that's what I'm doing right now. She's like, "Why are you staying up late and to finish all this work?" It's like, because this is something I believe in, and I want to help these kids because it's something that I know is an actual issue, and it just comes down to that thing where it's like, if my dad always kept it simple. He always said, if it makes you happy, keep doing it. If it doesn't, stop. It's just as simple as it gets.
Oh yeah, and I think what is that? Compared to the and seeing this progression, we talked about this too. Of the conversations and the things that we're talking about, and how the perspective that you have, in this latest third interview, right? This third podcast is you're starting to grow that awareness where eventually a lot of the people who are listening to this, even if you're an adult, like even if you're older, like I'm 38, right? And at anybody at any level, if they're dissatisfied with certain things that are going, they can take a lot from the story. And even if you're going to still hold down that 9 to 5 job because there's those responsibilities and priorities that you need to handle, in that, like you and I both follow Gary Vee, right? And some of these other guys, what people need to really take into consideration is you're uniquely squeezing the juice out of your 24 hours, right? You're not doing anything fancy or over the top or anything like that. You're just choosing to squeeze the juice the most, in response to like how, when you had that discussion with your mom of how you do your 24 hours versus somebody else, right? And ultimately that falls on you, 100% accountability on you, right? And you're translating that to your company. So yes, for all of those listeners, parents, teachers, university teachers, high school teachers, who are listening to this, this is a little different tone episode, but it's one of those things where, hey, Sean and I, we've gone through our Catholic education. I mean, I'm a father. I go to church as best I can every Sunday, but I'm human, like, and all that stuff like that, like, um, we're not the total model thing. We make mistakes. We kind of lax on some things or fall off, or we reallocate time, sources, and attention to other things, right? But the one thing that you can hopefully take from from what Sean's been talking about at this stage in his life, in this present moment that we can look back on in 5, 10, 15 years, is both him and I, in the things that we want to do outside of our primary accountabilities, whether it be a student, a full-time dad, worker, et cetera, is the spare time of what we're doing with the other parts of our 24 hours in a day when we're not sleeping and handling everything else, is we're really squeezing the juice out of stuff that we're really passionate about, right? Like, a lot of people like ask me, like, why do you even use your time, money, and resources to keep a podcast going when there's like, we don't do ads or anything like that. We don't ask for sponsorship or anything like that. But I see a lot of parallels in why you started your business and why you do it is you're just really passionate about it. It's fun and it's helping a lot of people, and it's not really causing harm to people, right? We're not like, on this podcast, we're not bad mouthing people or, slandering them or doing anything. We're just two people who were faith anchored, right? We have a lot of faith. We believe in our families and everything like that. And we just like sharing the good stuff we do to help bring value to people, right? and have fun while we do it. So
Even if you are working a 9 to 5, if that's what
yeah.
you love doing, and if you're very passionate about it,
yep.
then why would you change that? The biggest issue is that when you stop growing, when you stop wanting to get better at your 9 to 5, right? And maybe you don't want a platform to inspire others. Maybe you just want to work the 9 to 5 and help somebody else who's inspiring others, which is completely fine, right? For the people that work the back end of the hospital, that help the direct doctors influence and help others, that is perfectly okay, right? There's nothing wrong with that. But there's like 3 things, right? There's always 3 things. It's like, 1, continue to grow, never stop growing, because that's like, after what's the opposite of growth, right? Dying, right? And then, like, for anything, even plants, right? So that's the simplest example. And then 2, enjoy the whole process of growing while you're going through it, right? Because if you're just going through it without enjoying it, then at that point you kind of just lose your passion for it, and then you get jaded. And then 3, never forget the reason why you're growing, right? Never forget the reason why you started in the first place, because after that, then you start to lose your sense of value and your direction, and you never want to lose that. So those are like the 3 biggest things. I think, like what you were saying, kind of like how we have gone through the Catholic education. And I mentioned first in my first podcast that even though a lot of people haven't had the single parent life, or haven't moved several houses, or have had a lot to lose like I have, that all of that is irrelevant. Like, you can have a perfectly stable life and not go through any hardship. There's nothing wrong with that. But as long as you follow those 3 things of never stopping to grow, never always enjoying the process of growing, and then never forgetting your why, that is applicable across the board, regardless of background. So those are things that I always stress whenever I have these opportunities, is that even though my background is so unique, that is just to show that it can happen from any point across the board, right? It can happen from someone who's had a really stable, successful, and fun life, and really simple. That's okay. That shouldn't be an excuse. Just because I've gone through hardship and I've made it, or I've made to where I am today, that's not an excuse, for what I'm trying to do, So those are just the biggest things, that kind of, to reiterate what you were saying and about the 9 to 5 and how you spend your 24 hours. It all just depends on what you want to do at the end of the day.
That's cool. And, and hopefully, I hope people download this and they save it, because what's pretty good is, we don't have like the big limelight, like you or I, like we're just, our friends and people know us, and that's it, right? Like, for the most part, like if we walk down the street, people aren't going to stop and say, hey, can we take a selfie with you? Or, hey, can I get your autograph or anything? But what's really cool, where I guess I really anchored to it, is I personally, I hope like a parent or somebody saves it or listens to this later, like when it's those slow like times during winter break, they're on vacation on PTO, or like, they're just catching up on stuff, and they kind of use it as a reference, like a dictionary, right? Or a thesaurus, like in the library. Those are reference books. You don't just read it once, right? You go back to it as a reference. I actually hope people go back to this episode, so far out of any of the other episodes, or like it's like a whole carousel, and this is one of those episodes they pop in the playlist that you do once in a while. You check back in because you know what, like the stuff we just talked about, whether we're on episode 1 or 100, 500, or 1000, it's still going to be applicable. Even when AI, like advances or whatever else the future is going to look like with technology, or what the general life will be in modern times, what is that? These principles will still carry on, So I really hope people take that, and yeah, we had the story about, entrepreneurship and your business and, like starting out and really at the foundation, or hearing your story of the business right, right in the beginning, as it's getting formed, because, it's going to change. We know it's going to change. It's going to change, and we're going to, keep that positive mindset, but be prepared to be like, hey, even if at some point you're like, hey, I need to go ahead and stop this because it's provided the platform to jump on to the next, thing that I'm going to have passion, love, and want to, eat, breathe, sleep it, and find other people to do the same thing. So be it. Right. And I hope people want this episode to be that episode, That's cool. All right. So what is that? Fill us in. Like, what's the website? How do how do we if people are listening to this, how do we get in contact with you? How do we get into the funnel, right? Or into your contact list, or they can contact you and say, hey, Sean, we want you to come, or we want your team. We want what you have. How do they get in contact with you?
So the website is four-siteacademy.com. And then our social media is all the same. It's Foresight Academy, but that time it's not spelled with the number 4. It's actually using the number 4. Mm-hmm. It's just the website that's spelled 4. So we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Mm-hmm. And then we also have an email. If you guys ever want to personally email me, it's Foresight Academy with the number 4, foresightacademy@gmail.com. I always respond to emails within 2 days, within 48 hours. And then I also always check all of our media and everything. So you guys can keep tabs on us through there. But like I said, I think the biggest thing is just please, like repeat and replay, like never stop growing, enjoy the process while you're growing, and never forget your why, because those, like you said, those are the 3 things that will persist. And those are like some common themes across all 3 podcasts that we have. It's just be about the right stuff. And at the end of the day, whether you're making money or not, if you're having fun while doing it, and if it helps you, and if it helps everyone else around you while you're doing the right thing for the right reason, then keep doing it. Why not try? That was the first one, right? Why not try?
Why not try? Very true. Very true. And when you what does that reflect back when you say those things? I was like, oh, I remember the moment of where I was when I was recording when you said that.
Right.
It's vivid in my memory of like when we record, like where was I, what were we doing when we were recording, what was going on in the world and in San Diego and all that. So it's very cool. So all right, well, awesome. We got that information. We're going to definitely put that in the show notes. Again, want to send kudos out to you and your whole family and just everything. You just using all your God-given talents and putting, just straight up good old fashioned roll up your sleeves work ethic to it, and it's just definitely something to be admired. Like we say to everybody who's listening, it's not fancy. It doesn't have to be fancy, complicated, or anything like that. But if you go back to what Sean was talking about, was 3 universal truths that you'll hear from, and it's nothing new. You hear this from other business gurus, motivational speakers, Instagram feedback, right, stuff like that. We're saying it because it works. Straight out, it just works. So again, that I think we'll close it with that. Thanks again for joining us on another episode of the SMA Audio Experience Podcast. We want to thank Sean for joining us this week, and join us next time on another episode where we get to just talk to someone who's making great waves in the Catholic community, not just here in San Diego, not just in the United States, but hopefully pretty soon you're going to start hearing some guests internationally on the show. Till then, God bless. Take care. Bye for now.